Hello and welcome to Live a Little Higher. Today we continue this week with Rabbi Majewski's book, The Hasidic Approach to Joy, and we are going into chapter 8, which talks about growing from pain. So in the last weeks we spoke about how our mind controls our emotions, and I gave you some tips given by this book on how to be able to control your mind, how to change your thoughts into different thoughts so you will generate better emotions. This chapter is talking about a question that remains, that is it not important that a person experience pain when things are not working out, for this will spur him to improve. So Rabbi Majewski is saying here, yes, there's certain aspects in our lives that can be controlled by us, that we have the capacity to not fall into this emotional roller coaster, which is unnecessary. I always ask myself, is this necessary? It's such an important question, like what I'm feeling right now, is it a productive emotion? Is it necessary? Does it go with what's going on in my life, or is just something that it's coming into my head and it's an invention and it's just the Yetzer Hara bothering me and making me depressed? So we have to be aware. I think awareness is the key component in our joy. To be always awake, reading ourselves. I'm not saying that we have to psychoanalyze ourselves all day, because that would drive us nuts. But if we are feeling depressed and there's no reason, it's good to ask ourselves, is this necessary? Is it appropriate? Is this emotion appropriate for the moment? Sometimes here, answering Rabbi Majewski's question, the truth is that yes, sometimes we have to experience pain in our lives. It is a productive emotion. Sometimes we have to experience certain feelings to be able to spur change inside of ourselves. And not only that, not only in a life-changing way, but also sometimes we experience sadness in our life. Sometimes we lose a loved one, or sometimes we lose a friend, or sometimes whatever loss we have to experience, or a job or whatever, it is proper to be sad. It is proper to foster inside of us sadness, but not depression. So we have to be very careful in these two different feelings. They're two completely different feelings. If, God forbid, a person loses a loved one, it is appropriate for that person to be sad. And maybe for a long time, 1 year, 2 years, till that person can come back and remember that person with joy. So this is not something that is mathematically designed and 1 + 1 is 2. Each person is different, each person is built up in a different way, and you have to learn to weigh yourself. So here, he's saying here, on a physical level, physician says that the pain can be a blessing. Obviously, Hashem created pain for a reason. If you break a bone and you're not feeling pain in your hand, then you're not going to go to the doctor, you're not going to get a cast, and you're not going to heal properly. So pain can be very effective in healing. So if we feel pain, then the body or the brain is telling us, look at me, like there's something you have to do. We need change. And also, he says here, the Hasidic adage says that knowledge of the disease is half the cure. So when we know what's going wrong with us, it's half the cure. It can be in a physical level, it can be in an emotional level. When we don't feel right in a certain way, then we should look at ourselves and say, okay, why am I feeling like this? What is giving me this feeling? I remember many years ago I had a friend and she told me, I'm sad all the time, I'm sad. I said, why are you sad? Do you have a reason to be sad? She said, I don't really know. I don't have no reason to be sad. And I said, maybe it's a chemical imbalance. Maybe you have something that has to be taken care of. And actually she went to the doctor and she was tested and she had a chemical imbalance and she had to take medicine for that. And thank God today she's thriving and she's a very successful person. But what I mean is that you should not put those feelings and bury them and negate them. Sometimes are things that are coming to our head that are thoughts that produce them, and when we see, okay, it's my thought process that's producing this, then you have to take care of your thoughts. But if it's not your thoughts and it's just the way you feel and you don't know why and you cannot pinpoint where it's coming from, then we have to go deeper and deeper and look where the problem is coming from. So if God forbid a person never experiences any pain, the disease or malfunction will continue to grow, and it is possible by the time it is discovered, it would be too late to do something about it. In fact, the pain brings the condition to the person's attention and thus enables him to deal with it. It is obviously a positive quality. So a Farbrengen is a gathering of Hasidic people, of Hasidic men. They gather together around a table, and they have elder Hasid there, and they drink and they sing. And what this Hasid does is he fosters in these younger people change and how to deal with whatever is not going right inside of them and how they can change themselves. And there's a story here that is beautiful, that there was once a Hasidic Farbrengen going on, and a person was walking in the street and he heard them singing, and he said, oh, there's a Farbrengen, where is it, tell me. So one of the Hasids, he said, we're down here, come. And he started going down the stairs, and it got very, very, very dark. And he was saying, it's getting very dark, how am I gonna find you? Like, I can't go down there, it's too dark. And one of them said, do not worry, if you sit here long enough, your eyes will get used to the darkness. So the Hasid was telling him in a simple psychological fact that when you're sitting in a very dark place, your pupils dilate, they expand, and then you're able to see better. When you go into your room and it's pitch black, after a few moments you can start seeing your lamp and your bed, because the eye gets used to the darkness and is able to see. The same happens to us. When we get used to pain, sometimes we stop feeling the pain because we get so used to it that and comfortable with it that we don't do anything about it. So when a person has problems, be they physical, financial, spiritual, it is very important for him to recognize that there is a difficulty and to do something about it and correct it and look for help. Like if you need a rabbi, go to the rabbi. If you need a doctor, you go to the doctor. But don't ever sit and wait to see that things are going to get better, because sometimes we really need help. We really need to get going. So on the other hand, sadness and depression are not always valuable. On the contrary, they are very often paralyzing influences that rob a person of vitality and prevent him from solving the problems that present themselves. And what he's saying here is that depression is a very not good thing. And we have to be very careful about it. We have to really be very careful that when we're acknowledging our pain and we're sitting and dwelling on it, we don't fall into depression. And he says something very interesting here. He says you have to give time for your emotions. You have to give them a time limit. You cannot sit and give them free range. Like when you go to the doctor, he gives you a lot of time. He gives you 10 minutes, 15 minutes. If you go to the psychologist, half an hour. But they don't let you sit there and talk for hours and hours. You have a certain time. Why? Because if not, they'll take over you. And as he explains it here, it's like antibiotic. Antibiotic is a very good medicine. It's very powerful. It kills the bacteria in the body. But you have to give it in little doses. You cannot give it all at once, because if you give it all at once, it will kill the good bacteria in your body also and will create more damage. So antibiotic, you have to give it 3 times a day, 1 teaspoon, very dose, 8 days, and that's it. And the same way with our emotions, we have to treat them the same way as antibiotic. You have to give them 3 times a day for a little teaspoon. You cannot sit down all day and think about it, because then you'll get depressed, and depression is not going to correct anything in your life. It's going to make it worse. So I'm going to leave it here, and next week we will continue. And I want to wish you a beautiful, blessed week, and live a little higher. Thank you.